Last time we were in here, I almost took
About a
you
year
out.
ago. That's right.
Yeah.
It's actually quite eventful. I liked it. It was kind of fun. It was like a moment frozen in time. I can perpetually remember falling. It's true. It was like slow motion.
Because we were in
I
here
didn't
with you and
fall.
2 other seminarians. And we were up on a platform. It was a different setup than we have today. Did you notice? We kept everything
Yeah, I know.
on a level playing
I don't
field
have to
for you.
break my foot this time.
Or Mitch at the time, now Deacon Mitch, took one little slide back and off he went.
Yeah, I just
first
moved my
I-
chair back and one leg just fell off and the chair just slowly fell.
Yeah. At first I was terrified. I'm like, okay, we just took out one of our seminarians. Like Hartford needs priests. Like what had just happened? As soon as I knew you were okay, then I looked and it's like, was the camera rolling? I was really excited. They said, no, it's not. And we were all disappointed about that.
Yeah, that would've
Very
been so
good
cool to
sport,
see that.
So
It didn't hurt. I don't even remember what hit the ground first, to be honest. I don't even remember hitting the ground, but
Yeah.
I remember falling.
it was like,
It felt like forever. I felt like I was falling
isn't that a weird
forever.
feeling
Yeah.
when you fall? Like
Yeah.
that kind of kick feeling. It's like when you wake
There's
up.
nothing you could do. Because I was reaching out in front trying to grab something, but there's nothing there to grab. It was just like this empty space
fall.
right here.
It's probably like a foot or 2 off the ground. So.
Yeah, it wasn't really that bad.
Again, once I knew you're okay, it was time to laugh. So, and then fast forward a few months, you were walking or sliding around on a scooter in a boot earlier this.
Yeah, a
semester.
couple months ago, broke my foot.
You're out of that, so that's good.
Yeah.
Did you break your foot? Are you
So,
allowed to share?
yeah, so
Not
we
a
played in
controversial
a flag football game against the SJV, St. John Vianney Minor Seminary. And it was a really good game. Give them a lot of credit. They played really well. We eked out the win, but it was a hard-fought battle. And in one of the plays where I was the quarterback for the team, successfully threw 4 interceptions. It was glorious. And
I thought you were about to say 400 yards. I don't know. That's where
I think
had
I
my-
probably threw it for a total
That took
of
a
like
turn.
4 yards. And
4
then
yards, 4 picks. That's a good
yeah.
ratio.
I definitely completed more passes to the defense than to the offense. And after the last interception, I went to try to tackle the kid, and when I pulled the kid's flag, I kind of tripped, and my ankle rolled, and so being a soccer player, I've rolled my ankle a lot, so I just kind of hobbled off, thought it was gonna be okay, but then it just really hurt,
Oh no.
and so I kind of couldn't go back in, and that was fine. And then, I hobbled on it for a couple days, and then thought it would get better, like it did, and it kind of did get better. So then I walked on it for 6 weeks, played a soccer game on it. And then 6 weeks later, it was still hurting. So a nurse advised me to probably go get it looked at. Even though the nurse who advised me was convinced that it was fine, but just figured since it's been so long, you should probably just get it looked at, but it's probably nothing. And then I got it looked at and sure enough it was broken, and I had to be on a scooter
no.
for 4 weeks. So it was kind
Yeah.
of the nurse felt really bad that she didn't tell me sooner, but it was fine.
Well, yeah.
It's a good. Being on a scooter was great. Put a little bell on that thing. Went around the seminary.
Yeah,
and
where'd
it
the bell
caused
come from?
havoc.
Everyone knew you were coming because
I
you
had,
had the bell, just like the same.
I had
bell
2
you
bells
on, a little
on it.
Okay.
And multiple bells. Yeah.
Really?
No, I just kind of bought them on Amazon. I was like, well, if I'm going to go into this, I'm
gotta
gonna
lean
go
into it.
all out. Yeah, got a little
the
helmet
spirit.
on to be safe, and it was, yeah, it was kind of,
Yeah.
it was funny. It
You're
was,
probably glad to be out of the boot now, though.
yeah, glad to be out of the boot, glad to be able to walk. And I just on Monday, a couple days ago, the doctor kind of gave me the okay to continue, or to resume athletic activity, so I can start running and jumping and stuff.
Okay.
But it's surprising. The foot's still broken, and the doctor said it'll take a year to fully heal. It's surprising. It takes a long time for your foot, or maybe just my foot, to heal. But he says I can go back to things as long as it doesn't hurt, because I don't really have pain. But
Yeah.
then again, I
Feet,
never really had
ankles, Achilles, knees, and shoulders. They're just weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can go wrong, and there's a very fine line between it being very, very serious and a sprain, which
Yeah.
from playing soccer.
Yeah, no, that's kind of true. I mean, I thought when I first was going in and saw the X-ray, I thought I was going to need surgery
Really?
with the break. Yeah, I was
That was-
super concerned.
Pretty messed up.
And then the surgeon, because looking at the X-ray, it's you can see the break in the bone. It's I don't know how that's going to come back together unless that gets
Not
screwed back
supposed to look
together.
like
Yeah.
that.
And then the doctor was like, no, this is fine. I was like, oh, this is fine? He's like, yeah, it'll heal. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought I was going to need surgery. So
That's
that
hilarious.
was good news. Yeah.
That's good. And now you get to play some basketball in the St. Francis de Sales Invitational, which is in Milwaukee area every year. A bunch of seminaries get together, bring some athletic-minded fellas like yourself and play some hoops against each other. How much are you looking forward to that again this year?
Yeah, that's been my last opportunity as deacon to play in the basketball tournament. It's a great opportunity that seminaries around the country come together to play. I mean, I'm not a great basketball player, to be honest, but it's a lot of fun to come together and still play. I can try my best, go out there and play with the guys. It's a great opportunity just to bring seminarians together, have good fraternity and good kind of competition. And Also kind of like remind each other that we're there to grow closer to Christ and grow in holiness, and kind of encourage each other in competition, which is like good kind of like skills and just good. It's good like interaction, I think, amongst men to kind of compete with each other, kind of challenges each other. As like
Yeah.
St. Paul says, iron sharpens iron, so too does man sharpen his fellow man. It's like, I think that's kind of what's going on even at that tournament.
We receive, photos from it each year, and I'm always struck by, it seems like one of the few sort of built-in opportunities, because you all at the different seminaries throughout the country have such kind of tight academic, spiritual, etc. schedules, that there's that many seminarians from all over the country together. That has to be kind of a unique aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's like the best aspect of it, that you get basically, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 seminarians together to do something, which you normally just don't, because we're all on our own schedules, kind of doing our own things that the different seminaries have, because this seminary formation is somewhat intensive. So it's more than just getting a degree. There's all this other stuff kind of stuffed into it, which is great. But then you don't have these lot of opportunities. We can get a lot of men together to just do something together, or just to be together. And it's quite encouraging for us and edifying to each other that we get to come together and be in a chapel full of like 200 guys or 150 guys who are all studying for the same thing. And, it's kind of, it's like a family reunion.
Yeah. It's the universal church.
And it's like brothers fighting, like younger brothers and older brothers.
Well, that's just
fight
the
with
thing,
each other.
too.
And that's
It's
why
such
it's
a
like you
guy
love
thing
each
to
other
do.
and then
Like,
you fight with each other.
Yes, we're going to get together. We're going to try to beat each other. I'm sure it's competitive. I'm sure it's intense. I've seen some of the video clips. Yeah, then when you're done, you're praying together, you shake hands, you're brothers. That's really what it comes down to. So
yeah, that's cool.
What role has athletics played in your life overall? You played college soccer?
Yeah, a little college soccer, yeah.
Yeah. And you're kind of a soccer player growing up.
Yeah, definitely more of a soccer player. I played sports my whole life.
Yeah.
My father played a little football growing up, and so he kind of pushed me towards football, which I love. So I love playing football. But then when I was really young, my parents kind of threw me into all the sports, and I was just kind of the best at soccer and seemed to like that one the most. So my parents left me in that one. And then so I played soccer a lot. And then when I went into high school, I played football because I still kind of love football. So for 2 years, I played football in the fall and soccer in the spring. And then I hurt my shoulder my sophomore year of high school. I tore my labrum, which is kind of a nasty injury.
Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant.
And then I kind of went back to soccer. So then I played soccer then throughout the rest of high school and then in college.
Yeah.
And then I played like 3 years of college soccer at Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston. It was great. I had a really good time. But then as I was in college, playing soccer, I could see kind of my passion to play was just kind of waning a little, and was moving on into engineering, which is what I was studying. And then that's when it became clear to me that I had to kind of move on. It was hard because I didn't really want to stop playing, but I just kind of knew it's well, this isn't kind of working with how much time I have and what I need to be spending my time on. And yeah, but I mean, sports kind of formed me in a way. I could see kind of all those virtues and vices that come along with it. I've brought into seminary with me and try to continue to foster a lot of the virtues of teamwork, competition, playing hard, common goal, such. And then also kind of brings the vices where, you focus a little maybe too much on winning and not so much on some other higher virtues and stuff that need to get purified. But I would say that's been something that's been helped me to kind of enter into a seminary setting with a bunch of other men where I just have sisters growing up, but playing sports my whole life. I'm used to having all these brothers in a sense. So that is one thing that's helped me entering seminaries, having an athletic background, being very used to being around a lot of guys and doing a lot of guy stuff.
Are you older than your sisters, younger, or where you fit in?
So I'm second of 4.
Okay.
So I got one older sister, and then I got 2 younger sisters. So
pretty cool.
Sisters are great.
Yeah.
And difficult, but they're great.
Yeah. As a parent, I've 2 sons and 2 daughters, and just starting out, they're young, but it's really we feel blessed that we get to experience both.
Yeah.
They're both very different, but both awesome and challenging. In their own ways,
When my parents were pregnant with my youngest sister, I remember just wanting so bad to have a brother.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I want to have a younger brother. And I remember crying when I found out it was a girl. I was I wanted a brother. But now my sister's great. So I love having sisters. Yeah. But it is funny how the pairs kind of match up or whatever.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So you went to school for engineering, and then didn't you build submarines or something? Tell me about this engineering past you had, and then maybe how that played into you eventually feeling, the call to.
Sure, yeah. So I studied engineering in Boston for 5 years. I had a couple internships during the summer. One of them was actually with iRobot. They make the little Roombas that vacuum the floor,
Right.
which is kind of cool. And then when I graduated, I went to work full-time in Connecticut at General Dynamics Electric Boat. And yeah, they make submarines for the U.S. Navy. And then
Okay.
so I worked for them for 2 years. Now, I mean, was I building the sub? Like, no. Like, I was helping design a new submarine that's coming out in the next, like, 10 years. Even still for now, it's in, like, 10 years.
That's the development cycle?
Yeah, because they were designing. Yeah, they're really long because we were designing the first sub of a whole new class.
Okay.
And so there's, like, kind of two different classes of submarines in the U.S. Navy. You have smaller ones that kind of go around and do missions. And then you have bigger ones that have the big missiles on them. And then those ones that are big were all built in, like, I think starting the 70s or 80s into the 90s.
Okay.
And now, so those have been in the water for 20, 30, maybe almost 40 years. So they're starting to retire. So then they're designing a new class to kind of take those over. And that's what we were working on, designing that new class of submarines to take over that old ones that had the big missiles on them.
Okay.
And so I basically all day sat behind a desk with 4 computer screens in front of me, and I would just go like this and then go like this and stuff. But it was great. It was such a pleasure,
That's
and
a
it
cool
was
thing
kind
to
of cool.
get to touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting that it takes so long on just the development cycle because technology is changing so fast every day. It seems like.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I only worked there for 2 years, so I didn't get into, like, all the weeds and details of all these things, how they work. But yeah, I mean, it takes a long time. I mean, the subs are huge. Like the one we were building, it's 600 feet long, like 40 feet in diameter. Like, it's a massive ship.
Insane.
So it just takes a long time to build all those things and put it all together. And then once you build the ship, putting all the technology into it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
In defense stuff, they always have, like, there's a lot of, like, qualifications and requirements that have to be met. So it takes a lot of time with a lot of testing because the stuff has to work, especially underwater is very difficult to design stuff for. It's actually even probably a little more difficult than stuff up in the air. Because if you're up in the air, at least you can maybe survive on the fall, but usually not. But when you're underwater, you always have to try to be able to get back up.
Right.
Like, gravity's hurting you, not helping you. So it's
you're working against some serious forces of nature.
Yeah, so it takes a long time.
The engineer's brain is always so interesting to me too, because you have to be pretty left-brained and analytical. You got to make all the numbers.
Is it the left brain? I don't even know what side of the brain it was. Yeah.
Yes, I think I have that right. The right brain is more the creative side, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that too. You know, because you're building something, you're creating something.
Yeah, they have to kind of get things to work. And the way they kind of set up there, like, you have engineers, but then you have, like, people who would work over the engineers, who wouldn't necessarily be engineers. So sometimes they can kind of, like, balance that a little, and the engineers would just take care of the engineering stuff. Then you'd have other managers who would take care of the more creative stuff or other stuff. But it takes a lot to get. I mean, I don't know how many people touch the submarine, let's say, but it's got to be thousands and thousands of people before the thing's done.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, I'm sure working for a defense contractor too, just all the regulations and everything's tight. You know, it's like a different world probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. Again, well, I can at least compare, like, when I worked at iRobot and worked on the Roombas to when I worked at General Dynamics. The iRobot stuff, making the Roombas, was just for consumer. They had a military aspect. They kind of spun that off, but just for the consumer.
A military grade.
Not a vacuum cleaner.
Industrial vacuum
It
cleaner?
wasn't a vacuum cleaner.
I gotta get me one of those.
They had these little, like, remote control, like, mini tank looking things. I could go drive around with a camera on it or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah. But the consumer stuff is just, they're making something to sell to a consumer. So the regulations on that weren't nearly as much, really, as there were for, like, the defense contract, which is basically if the U.S. government sets all these standards that these things have to meet to do it. And it's important. And you have people on these things. You have sailors risking their lives. So it's like things have to work.
No pressure.
And you have to work the first time and have to work every time. And so it just takes a lot of testing, a lot of designing, a lot of thinking about what are all the possible things that could happen and go wrong. And, I think it's kind of a really cool thing to work on. And, if I didn't end up joining seminary, I could easily see myself still working there and kind of working on these things because it's kind of a great mission. It's really cool.
What happened? Did you have...
What did happen?
The seeds of a vocation for a long time, or how did your calling kind of out in your heart and your mind? Yeah,
that's a good question. So when I was working, the short answer is, like, no, I never had an inkling that I was going to be a priest until maybe, like, a couple months before I entered seminary. But I had a reversion. I mean, born and raised Catholic, and then, probably maybe like most people, I don't know, in high school, I proceeded to kind of like lose my faith. Really,
Dude, I was a saint in high school. I don't know what you're talking
really, yeah. So it's sad to say, but yeah, like I went to a Catholic high school and proceeded to just kind of like walk away from my faith.
about. Yeah.
Not externally, I still did the things externally, but internally, I really could have, kind of cared less or was interested in other things. And then went to college, kind of with the same mindset, just playing college soccer, focused on engineering. But then I had a reversion back in college, slow reversion back to the faith, and then that kind of like solidified it to me. God kind of just, hit me over the head a little and woke me up. And it wasn't that dramatic, like getting hit over the head like St. Paul did or something like that. It was just slowly he was working on me, and then slowly he drew me closer to himself, and then slowly I was starting to realize like, oh, my life has to be given to Christ. There's just no other option. And that took me like many years, and that kind of slowly solidified and still is. And then after when I was working, but then I was still kind of like, I want to be married, want to have a job, and I want to do those things. The priestly stuff didn't come until I went on a pilgrimage in, what was it? I think it was May 2018. I went to Rome with some Franciscan sisters in my diocese, the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist. And there was like 20 of us on this trip. And at that time I was like praying, like, all right, like, what am I doing with my life, Lord? Like, I know I want to be faithful to you the rest of my life, but show me like what you want me to do. Like, what's your mission for me? Like, what do you want? But please make it be marriage, because I don't really want to do anything else. And then,
What's your plan for me, and why is it marriage?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I already know what the plan is, Lord. You just need to confirm it, please.
Yeah.
Just rubber stamp it. And of course, when I was there, then I was praying in the Adoration Chapel at St. Peter's Basilica off on the side. And when I was in there just praying, like, Lord, like what? It was just very clear. Like God just kind of spoke to me, not audibly. I didn't hear it with my ear, but there's a way God can just bypass the senses and speak right to you. Yeah. And he was just like, Mitchell, I want you to go to seminary. And I remember being very joyful and very happy, and at the same time being like, not a chance. Thanks, but no thanks. And then
really, like in that moment, you're just kind of dual-minded.
Kind of, basically, where it's like there's a lot of joy and a lot of peace, and a lot of happiness. And there probably was a little part of me that knew that like that's what it was going to be. But there was all this other part of me that was just like, yep, not a chance, not ready to go down that route.
Yeah.
Little like division and little, resistance in my life still. And then so that was May, and then for the next 6-8 months, I just kind of wrestled with it. And then started praying more, and like after like I'd be working, and then I'd go after work, I'd go to the parish and just sit in the Adoration Chapel sometimes for an hour and a half, like maybe even 2 hours. And it's like, wow, like, first of all, like God's doing something to me, like that I'm enjoying to sit in prayer for an hour and a half, and it's like, okay, I wasn't forcing it. It was like this, God was just drawing me. And then I went to World Youth Day in Panama in 2019. Oh, this is like 9 months or 8 months after I was in Italy. And when I was going there, it was kind of the same idea. That's like, okay, I got to see what I'm kind of doing in life. But I kind of think knew at that point that like it's going to be seminary. I started getting a spiritual director at that time about kind of like, hey, this is what's going on. I think God wants me to go to seminary, but I don't really want to go, help me. And then when I went to World Youth Day in Panama, at one point there, we're just in the field with whatever it is, like 700,000 people in silence and adoration before the Blessed Sacrament. And it just kind of like slowly just impinged upon me, whereas like, I have to go give this a try.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just kind of like, there was a sense where I like resigned myself to it. That was like, I felt like I was killed and drawn down into it. It felt like God just kind of pinned me down, and I finally submitted, basically, and I was like, fine, I'll do it. And that was kind of the way in which I entered seminary. It was like, fine, I'll do it. Because I felt like he was asking me to do it, and basically just was like, not forcing me, but he was kind of like pinning down all other options. He's like, nope, this is what it's going to be. And then, so that's how I did it. But then later on, he changed my heart to where then like I love it. And the last 6 years have been the best 6 years of my life. So
yeah,
he always wins, and not only for his benefit, but also for my benefit. So,
and God willing, pretty soon hear the benefit of your parishioner
benefit. Yeah, the good people of the Archdiocese of Hartford. Yeah.
So.
And then one other thing I could say on that, which is probably kind of helpful. What was I going to say? I forgot now.
He pinned you down.
Yeah.
It'll probably come back to you later, and you can just interrupt me or yourself.
Yeah.
How those things go. I think it is. It's important just to sort of note, and we talk about it in our circles a lot. But like, going to seminary does not mean you're becoming a priest.
Yeah.
A lot of discernment has happened in the past 6 years, right? And
yeah.
What was that process like where your heart was changed through that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was actually one thing that helped me is a priest along the way at some point told me, Mitch, entering seminary doesn't mean you're getting ordained. Like
Yeah.
you go to seminary to see if you're
That's right.
supposed to be a priest. Like that's where the discernment is done. That's where you start living life and you know. And I was afraid to just go. It was kind of funny. Like I was afraid, like, oh, I can't, if I go and it's wrong, it's just like a waste of time,
Mm.
you know? And like that, I think was something that was stopping me, which is just looking back now, it's just such kind of like a silly fear, basically. But yeah, kind of once I got there and then kind of got into the life a little bit, it happened actually really quick for me. And it worked out funny because when I got to seminary, I got sent to Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit, Michigan. And another guy who was right across the hall from me was another guy who was on that pilgrimage back in May when I went with the Franciscan sisters. And so he and I both kind of ran into each other and we were like,
What are you
"Whoa."
doing here?
Yeah. So that was really actually kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
And then how God kind of brought us together first day on the pilgrimage and then also at seminary. But then it didn't take that long, really. Like my heart was kind of like wooed, and in a sense, like I like fell in love with what God was doing with my heart. The way I like to say it is, God made me love something I thought I could never love. Right? Like I never wanted to be a celibate priest. I always wanted to be married. But then God just made this desire to be a celibate priest just grow so much, and it really a lot happened in that first year. And it's kind of hard to explain how it happened. Like God just changed my heart, you know, and the things that I thought I would have wanted, that I thought would make me happy, God just revealed to me. He's like, yeah, like you can have those things, but I've got this over here for you, which I think you're going to like a lot more. And then as he just kept shedding light on that, it just kind of became a no-brainer. I was like, oh, like this is what he wants from me, and this is like much better. COVID broke out my first year in seminary, so I entered in 2019, and then in 2020 is when COVID broke out. So then we all kind of went into lockdown, and then Easter of that year of COVID, we were all in lockdown living with some priests and bishops or something. And then after Easter dinner, I just went outside on a walk and I was just kind of reflecting on the day kind of thing. And it was in that moment, actually, when I was walking, it was right at dusk, the sun was setting, and I was looking back at the building where I just kind of walked out from. Big piece of property, and, you know, so it's like kind of in the woods and fair amount of grass, and was just walking. And as I was looking back, I could see through the windows, I could see the priests and the other seminaries just chit-chatting or whatever. And it just kind of dawned on me that I'm like, oh, this is my life. I'm going to be a priest.
Wow.
And like, this is beautiful. And I like was joyful, and I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah. So I really kind of knew that early. But then it was also like, I was talking to my formator, my spiritual director about it. I was like, hey, I'm pretty confident. I think this is it. This is kind of what happened to me. But I also understand I just got 5 years to go, and like, I'm still open to if God's going to do something else, or if I'm just kind of misreading it.
Yeah.
Then that's what it is. But I think at that moment, God made it clear to me that like, no, it's moved on from discernment now to more to like preparation for ordination.
You never look back, really, huh?
Not really. I mean, yeah, there were times I definitely kind of like double thought, I'm like, oh, is that real? Did I? But then it's like, no, and I really look back. She's like, nope, like all 5 years of seminary, my heart is just deepened for love of the church, love of Christ, and for like love of celibacy. And it's not like things I've done to myself. It's like things that God's like done to me. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just beautiful how like God just opened up my heart and like poured out my ability to love, my ability to receive love. And he just kind of like laid forth this path of like, no, Mitchell, like this is what I want you to do. I want you to kind of like go out and be my like missionary to the world, in a sense. I mean, like to the good people of Hartford, but I want you to be sent out to go like do my work, bring them my love, bring them my sacraments. And that is just wow, like God just gave me the grace to really like enliven my heart to that and really get excited for that.
Yeah.
I feel very blessed.
What kind of things happen in formation to sort of help you walk that path? Like what type of experiences is the seminary giving you, whether it's spiritual direction or working with your formator? Like what steps are taken so you can kind of hit those milestones along the way, knowing, yep, I'm discerning well, I'm still on, this is the path I'm on.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple ways to look at it, because I think, you know, like here at the St. Paul Seminary, we have spiritual directors, we have formators, so we meet both of them periodically. The spiritual director talk about like how's like prayer life going, and then the formator talk about like how's like everything going in total.
Yeah.
But I think there's kind of two veins, where there's one vein where it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm presenting myself, Father, like try to get ready for ordination, but I don't quite know like if this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if this is quite God's calling. So there's like this discernment going on of like, I'm trying to walk down this road. Father, like walk with me and help me like see what's what. And the seminary does a really good job at that, with providing us with different like, well, these priests that we get to talk to. And then also we have these formation conferences, and then we have psychologists on staff here. There's like a lot of resources on staff that you can talk to, and it's a good culture to kind of encourage like your own desires to kind of come to the front, and prayer to kind of see like what God's doing in your life. And then I think there's kind of like another track where it's like, nope, I'm pretty sure this is God wants, and I'm kind of like already made that decision. And now it's just like, okay, how do I prepare for ordination? And I just felt like since I came here to St. Paul, since it happened to me back at Sacred Heart like 5 years ago, that I was like, no, I think this is it. My mindset when I came here is like, no, I'm preparing for ordination. So then, like, what tools does the seminary have to prepare me for ordination? That's more how I approached it. So then I seen like the spiritual direction was not just on like, oh, is God calling me to be here or not? It was more like, okay, how is God preparing me now for what like priestly ministry is going to look like? Like, Father, like, how do I be a good priest? Like, how do I, whatever. And then just seeing the priest, the first I would say is seeing the priests at the seminary are just a model of what it means like to be a priest. Like, oh, like these priests, these good and holy priests at the seminary are joyful men. They love the Lord and they love the church. It's like, wow, I want to be more like them. So just being around them for these 4 years, going on trips with them, spending time with them in a leisurely setting or in a serious setting, like all these things are just positive kind of moments of interaction that kind of help me kind of like conform myself more. And then you have the intellectual stuff. You have all the classes and stuff that you have to learn, like factual knowledge.
I was going to say, you haven't even talked about class yet. You're about to wrap up what's the equivalent of like multiple master's degrees. It's quite a load, but that's part of it, but not all of it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there is like a sufficient amount of stuff that needs to be known. You have to do like 32 credits of philosophy stuff, at least, I think. That's what it is to be a priest. And then you have to do basically 4 years of theology studies. So there's a lot of stuff you need to know, like factual knowledge and just stuff about God. I mean, that's partly your job. It's like you're trying to bring people closer to God. It's like, so you need to know who God is and who he's not. But I think there is a way that it's like secondary. Like it's all integrated together and like there's like 4 dimensions to formation, right? There's the intellectual, the spiritual, the human, and the pastoral, and they all kind of come together and stuff. But seminary is, you are getting a master's degree, a master's of divinity, and then there's a second track with guys can also get a master's of arts in theology, do some extra papers and stuff.
Are you doing that?
And then, yeah, I'm doing that. So
that's like what the really smart guys do, is sort of the stigma.
Yeah, or they just let, random people into it and they don't grade them that hard. So it depends. I don't know.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically or practically.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like I think the point is like, yeah, like seminary is, you're getting a master's degree to learn stuff, but it's more than that. You're really like, you're following a person, whose name is Jesus Christ. And it's like, yeah, you need like an intellectual capacity to be a priest, but the bar is like, I would say somewhat low for that. And it's not, it's not like the, in heaven, the smart ones are closer to God and the less smart ones are further away from God, it's anything like that. Yeah, I promise that. That's for sure. So it's, yeah, I mean, the studies, I'm kind of, I guess, beating around the bush here a little because, like, I enjoy the studies a lot. I think it's great, and I think I have a little bit, like, an inclination towards it, I guess, my engineering background, maybe. Like, I really like
to learn
into the theology and stuff, but it's, it just can't always be, like, Christ has to just be seen in and through it. Otherwise, it just becomes merely, like, a intellectual activity, just like learning about how to code something or learn about mechanical engineering. It's like, yeah, like theology can be viewed as that. And there's a way it needs to, because it is systematic and structural and it builds on itself. So you need to understand that.
Yeah.
But it ultimately leads into a relationship with a person. And that's what actually animates it. Like all theology is done like on our knees before the Blessed Sacrament, kind of like, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. But it's true. Like the Holy Spirit needs to animate it all because a lot of the things of Revelation, the first principles of theology are revealed to us. It's like, so we have to take that on faith and then we kind of work from that. So if we lose the Holy Spirit or the revelation from faith, it just becomes a hollow, like mere intellectual thing that never actually permeates the whole being. And that's one unique thing about theology that you don't get in mechanical engineering or coding. Those are just merely external activities that you do something, you form some external stuff. You can build a submarine or a cup. But theology actually like forms your interior person. Yeah, the mechanical engineering forms your mind a little. So then you kind of see all of life through a mechanical engineer's mind a little. But theology actually is animated by the Holy Spirit that actually conforms your heart to Christ. It like changes the whole person. Yeah. Which is quite fascinating. And that's why like theology is the greatest science, because it just touches everything. It touches God and all things in the relation to God. So it's the greatest thing that every engineer should start reading theology before they finish their engineering stuff. Not because it's just like it's more interesting, but also just because it's like it's more pertinent to like life. It doesn't mean the engineering stuff's bad. The engineering stuff is great, but it just has to be kind of taken in the picture of the whole, and that's where like the theology comes in. And so there's a lot of stuff the seminary does, and we spend a lot of time in class. We probably spend the most amount of time in class, and then we spend a fair amount of time in the chapel and a fair amount of time with. They got some psychologists on staff, and then a lot of priests and just people and around. So it's a lot.
No, it's great. there's also the matter of you receive all that, but then your job now is to sort of distill that and articulate it to normal people like me and, your future parishioners. Is that something that are there I guess there's probably natural gifts that allow you to do that, but then that's part of the formation as well, is to sort of bring that to the people, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ultimately, you can kind of like be the most well-read like theologian in the world, but as a priest, if you can't like give a homily or like explain it to someone, it's not that it's unhelpful. It is like you can still go write books and stuff like that or whatever, but it's not that helpful for like the parishioners in the pews if you can kind of like give them what they need. And that's, I think, really where like the fatherly aspect comes out, where it's like, no, just as like a father tries to like teach his kids about life and about things, it's like in another way what a priest is doing. It's not that like he's necessarily older than his parishioners, but the point is like, okay, he has this intimate relationship with Christ and he knows all these things about God, or at least he should. And then he has this anointing from God. And that's really the kind of the key factor. It's like he was ordained. Jesus gave him this mission to go bring these mysteries to these people. And that's kind of, I think, a little bit of the scandal in a sense of being a priest, because, as a priest, when you're hearing confessions or you're giving a homily, it's like odds are, very good chance, you're not the holiest guy in that room in about any capacity, probably. There are people there are much more holier than you. But it's like, well, I'm still been given like this authority by Christ to give them what they need. And like that's humbling. And like that as a priest, like we need to remain humble and realize like everything I have has been given to me. But everything that's been given to me has been given to me so that I can give it to the people who Christ wants me to give these things to. And I think that's something the seminary does a really good job as reminding us to stay humble and to remind us of our role as a priest. And that's what the formation staff and just the whole seminary, that's like the bread and butter. It's like, what are we doing here? Well, we're forming priests. Well, I mean, obviously it's like wider than just seminarians, so there's a wider mission than just priests. But for the track that I'm on, which is for priests, it's like they're forming us to be priests conformed to the heart of Jesus Christ, which means like we're coming to give them the thing that Christ gave us, which is basically the sacraments. Like that is something I think is like very important for us priests to remember, that it's like I have nothing on my own. Everything I have has been given to me, and everything I have that has been given to me, I am sent out to give to you, to the people who are in the pews. So
sounds like you're ready.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited. It'd be bittersweet though. I'm excited to go back to Connecticut and be a priest here, plug back in. I've been away for like 5.5 years now.
Were you born and raised in Hartford?
Not the Archdiocese, yes, but not Hartford proper. I live about an hour and a half south, or hour south of Hartford.
And your family's still there?
Yeah. Parents are still there. Like I said, I have 3 sisters. One sister lives in New York City. Another sister lives up in Boston.
Okay.
They're both nurses. And then the youngest sister, she lives still in the hometown, Guilford. Yeah. She teaches elementary school.
It'll be a homecoming for you, too. There's some beauty in that, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. There is. So it'll be good. A little bittersweet to leave here. I've met a lot of people here over the last couple of years, which has been such a blessing. Yeah. But
what are you maybe most looking forward to about being a priest? Not look too far ahead, but
yeah, I think the answer is a lot. There's a lot, but for one, just like wearing clerics around town, just trying to be like an evangelist. Yeah, I just really want to just be a physical presence of Christ walking around, basically. And that's for everyone. For people who are gonna like come up and yell at me, or if people come up and want to talk or whatever, just like I just want to wear my clerics and just kind of be a public figure, in a sense, who like in town, who just it's like, oh, that's the priest. Yeah, I kind of want to do that. And then I want to evangelize, because I kind of see myself like evangelizing through that in many ways. And then of course administering the sacraments and stuff and like that, just being a vessel of the sacred species and stuff is beautiful. Yeah. But yeah, I think if I had it, like the one thing, it would be evangelization. That's what I'm most excited for, which isn't like strictly speaking a priestly thing, obviously, but I'm excited to evangelize as a priest.
Yeah. Well, it's always been needed, but it's definitely needed now just in our societal context, right? Where it's like we do need to, you can't just, it's a different time. You can't evangelize or spread the word the same way that maybe our parents or their parents could. It kind of starts with witness and relationship, right? So even
it does.
Some people might hear, "Oh, I want to hear my clerics in public," and think that that's somehow like drawing attention toward yourself. But I assume the intention there is very much like, no, like I'm drawing attention to to Christ, right?
Yeah,
And
that's yeah.
To me as a
Yeah.
layperson, it's much better than the alternative. Like, I just want to blend in. I don't want to cause any trouble. It's like, no, that can be a very powerful witness, for the rest of us. Just like, this is a man who's given his life to something. How many people can you even like say that about now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's not many, or at least we kind of like live in the age of non-committalness in a sense.
Yeah.
People always kind of want to back out on things. So, and whatever, people have their kind of reasons for that, but that is kind of the reason why I want to do is just kind of like remind people of like, oh, that's a priest. Like that's someone who like, because it's just not as I think popular on the East Coast, or just as like prevalent. We just don't have as many priests out there as other dioceses and stuff. So
really, I think bigger population, so I make assumptions, right? But
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of like my diocese and like
yeah.
like this archdiocese has more priests than my diocese.
Okay.
I mean, you guys are also a little bigger than us, I think, but
Sure.
but still, it's just like, oh yeah, like I don't know, I just want to be present and just kind of make it more normal in the culture that you have priests around, great to get nuns around, and it's like, oh no, this is just like a part of the culture, cultural feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been a deacon since last spring, so you're already in some ways helping celebrate the liturgy and celebrate the Eucharist. But how much are you looking forward to, leading the sacrifice in that way as
a priest? I'm very excited, kind of almost a little like dauntingly like nervous in a sense, because
that's probably healthy, I would think.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think.
Pretty
Yeah,
big deal. What's going on up there?
Pretty important thing, kind of the source and the summit of the Christian life.
Yeah.
So I've been like practicing a little, doing like fake masses, just going through the missal and just like kind of running through the motions in my, little fake altar or something like that. But yeah, I'm excited, and I don't know. To be honest, I don't have much to say about it. It's just like, yeah, like that's what I'm gonna be doing. That's gonna be like my job in a proverbial sense, or to to offer the mass, which is beautiful, and I don't know, I have this like great reverence for it. And it's great, like it's almost like I'm preparing in silence in a sense, or it's just like wow, like this is what it's gonna be.
It's such a core thing to what your identity.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that, and there's like great intimacy to it, and there's great like reverence for it. It'll be like every day, most likely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be celebrating mass, and that's just gonna be the center of my life. And the seminary here, like they have classes. We have a mass practicum, so Monsignor Gideon, our liturgy director, will like teach us how to celebrate mass. He'll go through the rubrics and kind of show us, what the mind of the church gives us for how mass should be celebrated. He'll show us where to find these things in the missal. So it's like, oh, if we ever have questions, we know where to go. Like, oh, we're supposed to, when we do this or that, or like how many readings do we have today, like things like that, practical questions. And then we'll celebrate mass a couple times and like watch each other basically, so we can critique each other. And then we'll like record ourselves celebrating mass so that we can watch it. Not to be weird, it's just to kind of, when you do something and record yourself doing it and you watch it, you realize like, oh wow, I do that, or oh wow, oh it would be better if I did this or that. It's like watching film and sports.
That's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, but it's, if I can go watch my soccer game back to see if I was in the right position here or there, this is
it's helpful.
The most important things you'll do. So
yeah,
it's beautiful in a way that it's taken that seriously, right?
Yeah, and there's a way I think it's like practice kind of has the same, like in sports, you practice, you get muscle memory. Well, it should be the same kind of thing even in the sacraments, that like celebrate mass, you should have this muscle memory of how you celebrate it. Not that you're like checked out and you're thinking about something else, but that it's like it's second nature. Like this is what you do. You kind of know what you're doing, so it's smooth. I think we've all been to masses where something kind of weird happens and become very distracted when the priest kind of doesn't know what's going on, is whatever. But like when the priest is kind of very smooth and kind of knows what he's doing and it's just kind of second nature. Well, I think it's much more prayerful because it's just not as distracting. You're not watching the priest. It's not supposed to be just like watching what the priest is doing. We're supposed to be drawn into prayer, drawn up to higher things. And so I think the more that like the priest is kind of like well prepared to celebrate the liturgy, the more he can draw people into prayer. So that's really what I wanted to be able to do.
Yeah. I've heard pretty cool stories and even sat in on a couple sessions of the practicum. I think it's interesting that happens so late in formation. Like it's almost the what kind of happens last, and you've had all this philosophy and theology, and I assume the intent is you bring all that to the actions of the ritual, so they're not just ritual for ritual's sake, but you have a full understanding of what it signifies when you hold up the body and blood of Christ, and everything on down from there.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it also could be very important just to be practicing earlier. Like I've talked to people before who are very adamant that the man should start practicing celebrating Mass like in first theology, like 4 years
Really?
before he's
Okay.
named a priest.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot of wisdom to that, where it's like, no,
Yeah.
this is like your life. And when you're in theology, yeah, you're studying theology, but like everything is around the Mass. So if you're already practicing the Mass, it's a lot easier to kind of just be getting a rhythm of life that everything you do, it just kind of relates to the Mass in some capacity.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That
I don't know.
sense too, but
But yeah, you have to kind of get ready to go at the end. So you definitely need the class. And if they had the class too, like I don't think you could have the class in like first theology, because it would just like guys would forget maybe or
there's
something.
practical aspects.
Yeah, there's
to it,
practical
too.
aspects. But I think on a deeper level, it could be done sooner.
I just think it's important for us as Catholics to remember that each action the priest is taking in the person of Christ, or each action I'm taking as a parishioner in the pew, like, it's not just ritual for ritual's sake. Like, there's literally supernatural significance to when I sit. So I'm listening to the word of God.
Yeah.
Right? Or when I kneel, like, it's a true act of
There's
worship.
reverence
All
and
those
stuff,
things.
yeah.
Like, there's all this intentionality behind it. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I think it shows the wisdom of, the Holy Spirit kind of animating the church for 2,000 years. And yeah, like the liturgies throughout the world have been different.
Yeah.
And they kind of are different and stuff. So like some of the things kind of show the cultural expressions of different areas. But yeah, I think there is like a beauty that like everyone should just study and learn more about the Mass and like what the things mean, because there are meanings behind all these things. Yeah, some of them are practical things that maybe took on spiritual significances. Other things are very essential elements that like can't change, like the consecration, the words of consecration and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like the greatest mystery we have. So, I mean, well, not quite like Trinity is the greatest mystery we have, but like it's close to the greatest mystery that we have. So it's important to dig into it and like learn more about it and just keep it close to our heart. I think that's kind of the beauty of daily Mass. It's like, no, like if we don't know what to do as Catholics, well, just go to Mass. Like you don't need to know what to do. All you need to do is show up and like let God do the work.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
What day's ordination out there in Hartford?
It's Saturday. I think it's 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. I can't remember. June 21st. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Is it 22nd? No, it's Saturday, June 21st. Yeah.
So you're not quite at the point where you're counting down days.
No, I'm not. Yeah, some guys have
You'll get
countdowns
there.
on things, but like, no, I don't have a countdown.
Yeah.
I'm kind of not that guy. I probably won't ever actually have a countdown, to be honest. I mean, I'll know it in my head, but I won't probably have it on my phone or
Living
something.
in the moment.
Yeah, so.
That's good.
But, no, yeah, I'm excited. I'll be the last one ordained of the, there's 13 deacons in the class right now.
Yeah.
And of all of us 13 deacons, my classmate and I, Martin, ours is the latest ordination. And then my classmate alphabetically is ahead of me. So I'll be the last of the 13 deacons. I'll be the last one ordained.
The caboose.
Yeah.
Will you go to some of your other classmates' ordinations?
I'm hoping to go to everyone's, yeah.
That's
so
a good opportunity.
be driving a little bit all around in May, beginning of June. But yeah, it could be beautiful.
Yeah.
I might be able to deacon some of their first masses, which will be cool because I'll still be
sure.
a deacon when they're all priests.
Yeah, if you've never been to an ordination mass, you definitely should. But if you've never been to a priest's first mass, I've learned that just working in the seminary environment.
Yeah, it's
You gotta
really cool
be
to
looking
go.
forward to that too.
Yeah.
And
there's an indulgence
thing.
attached to attending a newly ordained priest's first mass.
Yeah.
Which is a great spiritual
Can't go wrong.
opportunity.
Well, thanks for the time. Appreciate this. It's
That's
great to
good.
hear your
Thanks,
story,
fellas.
and
Great.
looking forward to seeing what comes next. That's the cool thing too, right? Is like, yes, you're coming to the end of something, but it's a beginning.
Beginning
more
of
than
something
anything.
else. I think it's Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, we'll
Don't
go
be
with that.
sad
That sounds
and
good.
I'd be happy that it
Absolutely.
or something like that. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Oh, good. No, thank you. It's a pleasure.